All right. Since it's another episode of the AC Unfiltered. How are you, Chris?
I am doing well. A little flustered having to deal with traffic, but
Traffic and coding a lot lately?
oh yeah, you betcha. Yeah, that's the two. How about yourself? How have you been?
Good, good. Good, good. Also working a lot. So, um, I don't know. Tired, but it's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, and I'm also excited because we have a great topic today, which I don't know, man. I feel in general people always complain about this, about Autodesk being a monopoly, and a lot of people saying that most of the problems in the industry are due to Autodesk, and I, I'm excited to discuss it.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. It's, I was. It's kind of interesting because the word monopoly has a lot of negative connotations. They're like, hey, this is bad, and I think really a bad thing might be monopolistic practices, which is quite different
Hmm.
because I don't believe honestly that that Autodesk is doing anything underhanded or fair with regards to business practices and being competitive. In fact, one of the things to say about Autodesk is it invites startups and supports them through
Hmm.
its developer network, its APIs, and I was a part of that when I worked at Autodesk, and I think that's kind of the opposite of what you would expect from the negative connotation of a monopoly. I think when I talk about monopoly and we bring up this topic, perhaps it's just what I think people are unhappy about is lack of choice in the marketplace that is actually competitive. I think they're just saying, well, basically no product out there can do what Revit can do, for example. And yeah, that's not Autodesk's fault. They just did a great job with the product. The team that built it did a great job, and they continue to work on it. So yeah,
I
that's
agree.
my 2 cents on it from a high level. What about you?
No, no, absolutely. First of all, I guess we need to define what a monopoly is, right? Because Autodesk, like if you take into account the market share, right? Autodesk, I think, let me have it here. It's 26% of the market.
Huh.
They own 26% of the market. So can you say it's an actual monopoly when it's not more than 50% of the market? And also, I think it varies so much. Like Revit, true. It says that more than 50% of the architectural firms in the market use Revit, true. But in other places of the industry, like construction, Autodesk is not even 20% of the market share. So I wouldn't even consider it a monopoly because it's just 25% of the market. It's not as much.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. So, it's interesting to start off. I think we both agree Autodesk does not have a monopoly. And also further, is it monopolistic? I don't think so. I think the lack of choices and that are, let's say, compelling to users is perhaps just a fact that software developers haven't really entered into the market with a competitive offering at this point.
True. And also there is something that sometimes people I think complains about. First of all, they say Autodesk buys anything that works in our industry, and for me, it's just false because it doesn't acquire that many companies, and there are a lot out there.
There are indeed. Yeah, I've been
There
a
are
part of a couple of
thousands.
companies. Like, I've been a
Yeah,
part of a couple of companies who wanted to be acquired, have consulted with companies, and no, Autodesk sometimes goes, nah, we don't need it. You do your thing. We support you.
yeah, and also the fact that when Autodesk acquired, for example, Revit, right? That I think Autodesk is 25% of the market share, of the revenue comes from Autodesk, from AutoCAD. The second product is Revit, and when they acquired Revit, it took them more than almost 10 years to start getting making profitable, to being profitable. So even when you would consider Autodesk as being this mean corporation just buying companies and destroying them, good luck. Good luck if you want to do it on your own. Like it took them 10 years to make something profitable. I think the fault lies more on the industry itself than on Autodesk.
Yeah, yeah. I think I agree with that. I think that um, I mean, I'm going to throw the blame right back at architectural firms and say, you know what, guys, you're actually a little bit cheap. I mean, really, like I've been working as a software developer, and it's like, it's pulling teeth to get them to try out and support smaller businesses. Um, you know, I understand though. I mean, it's really hard for architectural firms. I know it's hard for
It's
them
not their
to.
fault. It's
Yeah,
margins are super thin, man. It's
they
not.
are. They
It's
are,
not
and
that
I
they
mean,
don't want to get more money.
no, I know. And it confuses me because it's like when you look at the numbers for the industry as a whole, construction is a monstrous industry and there's tons of money being put into it. And I'm like, why are architects getting such a small slice of the pie? Uh, that that I find that kind of sad and unfortunate.
Well, in general, margins are super thin in our industry. Like if you compare with cars industry, right? Margins are
Perhaps. I think there's
much
some people
better.
are finding a way to do it. Boy, I want to say some unpopular things, but listen, I worked my butt off in the software industry for years. And it's not all roses and whatever. People think, oh, all software developers make a lot of money. No, no. It's you. I was making okay, paying off my mortgage and stuff. And the people around me building these monstrous $1 million homes were people actually in the construction industry. And I was kind of confused why that was. These contractors with these
True.
monstrous homes making clearly, three times, four times more money than I am. Somewhere there's money being drained off. It's not used efficiently. I think the industry has variable, what do you call it? Profit margins. I think sometimes the people that are more accountable are making that hold themselves more accountable are making less money.
Yeah, and I think that ties into people sometimes complaining about paying licenses, right? Like, hey, licenses are too expensive. And I disagree. I completely disagree with it. Like, if
Mm.
you don't want to pay the license, don't pay it and use a different software. And if there is not a different program you can use, they're right on charging you a lot of money. I would do the same. If I own a
Mm.
company, I am the only one out there. I would charge as much.
I'm gonna give him a second. Wait, see if he comes back.
Ah,
Welcome back. You were saying you would
thank you.
charge as much as I'm
I
guessing
would
you
just,
can.
yeah. As much as I can. Like,
Man,
and I think every startup's trying to do the same thing. Like, I know it's not a popular opinion, right? Like saying, you know, you know that you would charge your clients as much as you can, but it's true.
well, it makes
Like we
sense. I
all
think,
want to
yeah.
get more money, and you cannot blame it on the company and say they're evil because they're charging you too much.
No, no. I mean, I think if you think about it, if when you think about what the software does in terms of saving you time and energy as opposed to doing things manually on paper, you're like, well, actually, the cost is actually quite affordable for the amount of savings you get. The other thing to consider when people complain about the cost of software is that when you do software development, there's a long intro where you have to spend a lot of time doing R&D, and it's a little bit like the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not saying the pharmaceutical industry is fair, but you do have to put R&D into it, and then you have to get a payback at the end because you're rolling the dice risking. Like so, for example, in my business, and I've spent 2 years and a fair amount of money trying to build up a product, and I'd like to be compensated for that time lost in the future. If when I charge. So yeah, we have to charge reasonable prices.
Yeah, you might like it or not, but you cannot say they're evil and they're ruining the industry because they're charging too much. You're free not to buy the license and do it with a different program or not do it at all, do it manually. So I don't think I think sometimes people are like, not fair with Autodesk. Not that they
Mm.
don't have a lot of things to improve, and they have a lot of things that I don't like, but I don't think they're evil or
No,
they're ruining the industry.
no, I don't agree. Now, Dennis chimed in on the chat, and I think he said something really interesting. He says they have a decent competitive control when it comes to their product development. Even when you read the fine print on the developer network partnerships, it's clear that whatever you're working on, they're most likely working on it too. And so, yeah, they do. So they're generous up to a point, and then they will drop people from the developer network if they're too competitive. They won't allow certain competition into the what do you call it? AU.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They
That
control
that
that a bit, yeah, and I agree, and they have a fair amount of control. Um, but yeah, I think there's ways to break through that and to change it a little bit.
But if you think about it, like it's their party. When you're their AU, it's their party. It's
Mm,
the commemoration of their company. Tell me which startup invites their competitors to their end of the year party?
yeah, no,
None.
I agree. I agree with that. It's interesting. I mean, I think though part of one of the things I wanted to talk about today too was this like, well, strategically thinking from the point of view of two startup owners, like how do we as an industry move things a little bit? How do we have our own party, as you said? Um, there's one of the ideas is to have a hackathon. For example, hackathons are a great ways for people to get together from outside the industry and say, "Hey, these are our skills, these are our tools. How can we put them together in new ways?" I find that very interesting.
I mean, instead of that, we should, I don't know, create a company that is successful enough to compete with Autodesk. But given
Yep.
the fact that we have not accomplished that, and we don't
Yes.
know if we will accomplish that, there are good examples out there like Procore, right?
Mm.
I think Procore is a great example. Like I think they have 12% of the market share, which it's a lot, given the fact the amount of years they have been out there, and given the fact that the amount of products they have, it's more limited compared to
Mm.
Autodesk. So that what they have done, it's incredible. So you can
Yeah.
do it. I mean, and
For sure. And I mean, it's interesting because they kind of go into more on the actual act of construction, whereas Autodesk more on the design side. They both have overlap, but understanding that market and playing, adding value to it, I think is a great strategy. And as you said, I mean, it's an open market, so we're allowed to come up with new ideas and new businesses. Um, I think there's some potential out there. Nowadays, like coding is becoming easier and easier. The software that these folks have been selling is getting older and less relevant.
mm,
So there are these great opportunities. One of the problems I'm seeing a little bit is also in terms of the venture capital, which guides a little bit of where we need to go. And it tends to follow um, trends and buzzwords and hot things. Oh, it's got to be cloud, it's got to be browser based, it's got to have AI. And I'm like, hey, folks, what if we just did a more efficient desktop tool for designers, for architects? Like, that is the most unsexy thing you can think of. And that's where I'm saying, I think I could do it. I think,
I
and
mean,
that's where, yeah.
maybe you know what I think, and I'm on the opposite spectrum. I don't think the answer is just like you said, just doing AI or cloud. I don't think it's about the
No,
technology, but it's about solving problems. And
for sure.
sometimes what I feel is that people concentrate too much on we're going to build the next Revit or we're going to build the next.
Fair enough. But I mean, let's just play with that for a second, though. I mean, Revit. I've spent so much time thinking about these design tools and working in their code bases and seeing where they're falling apart. And I just see an opportunity, just from a technological standpoint. I'm not saying, hey, your business model for everyone should be design a new Revit. I'm just saying, isn't there clearly an opportunity here to make a piece of software that runs 10 times as fast on the same hardware and has a more intuitive user interface and a better architecture? I mean, and does a better job of managing data. I mean, these are just all across the board. There's all of this room for improvement in software engineering.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree on that. Like, I mean, Revit, it's a really slow. It's a great software, right? It's a great tool, but it's slow and it's ugly and it's expensive. So if you build something that it's cheaper, faster, and looks better than it. And you might be successful. I think that the
Yeah,
challenges are, it's not only technology, but also like you're gonna have to fight with the fact that, again, more than 50% of the architectural firms uses Revit, for example.
that doesn't matter.
So,
I mean, that's Revit.
no,
When Revit started,
absolutely.
nobody was using it. It was very hard to get users. But I
I
think
mean,
what
but
you're
it took them
yeah,
10 years, right? So
yeah,
you need to be ready. I think that's all the next challenge, where people
yep,
think, I'm going to build a startup for the AC and it's going to behave like other industries where overnight I might become a millionaire and everybody is going to be using it.
yeah.
And
There's
experience
there's very
tells
little
us
chance of that in
that
this industry.
it takes at least a decade. Like most, like Procore, the same. Like it took them 10 years to be successful. So
Hmm.
I think the big challenges are our industry. I don't think are technical challenges. It's more of how to manage your startup, and the challenges are different in my experience, at least.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I've been spending the last couple of years mostly studying the industry and trying to understand how to play well with it and how to address the needs. Um, yeah, no overnight, quick, easy success, but there's definitely opportunities. So again, for startups, what else can they do? Do you think? What are the opportunities for them to try and, let's just say, be competitive?
Well, I feel that niches, it's the answer. Like the other day, for example, I met a guy who she just designed porches, right, for houses and decks. That's the only thing he does. And he started using Revit, and now he automates it on the cloud. And he's just one guy. He's making a lot of money.
Yeah,
And I feel that in general, we tend to think of the industry of something that needs to be disrupted as a whole. And that's too ambitious when there is a lot of market of, maybe if you create. The other day also I spoke with an electrical engineer. He was like, we don't need Revit for the calculation of the lighting fixtures and the location of it. So if we could have a really simple tool that allows us to calculate the way the type of light that you need on certain places, we would just pay and use it. And there are thousands of opportunities like that. So that's what I think, that
mm,
there are so many niches that nobody is taking care of, and there's a
I
lot of
agree with
money.
that. I agree with that. And sometimes I see this mistake from people who are very technical and they're very accomplished on a software level, and they come into the industry and they go, "Oh, we have this technology. It could be used this way, this way, this way, this way, this way," and then they put out 10 different use cases that are completely at odds with each other. They may have a product, for example, and they're showing an automotive demo and something with maps and something else. And especially when people do like high end, rendering technology or data management. And I'm like, you know, you're never going to actually break into the AC market if you are spread thin like that. You have to really, and like you said, there's there's niches within the market, and I think you gotta go in and play it. But if you spread yourself across multiple industries, forget it. The technology, the problem, you're not problem solving problems. You're just running around with technology going, "Hey, we could do all of these things." Of course, you can do it, but do you actually have a useful
Yeah.
solution for somebody's problem?
You have better odds by just focusing on one thing than in multiple ones. You might, it's like Revit. You might be successful if you target, yeah, maybe, but your odds are against you. So
Mm.
I think people need to focus more on that, and focus more on users. Like, hey, as soon as I launch, I need to have users. Day
And
zero,
I
you
agree.
need to have users. You cannot
Yeah,
just launch because you think it's a good idea.
no, and I agree. So one of the counterpoints to the find a niche and go into it is when you are trying to pitch a business idea and you're trying to pitch a growth strategy, let's say to venture capitals or even to the bank, you're trying to come up with a business plan. Well, if you go too niche, your product gets shot down really quickly because they're like, hey, the cap, even if you got full saturation, which is almost impossible, you're only going to make so much money, and that's too small for us to worry because it's a mom and pop business. And I'm just saying that this is one of the challenges that some entrepreneurs have, and like I had it early on when I was kind of overthinking things. For example, today I'm looking at computational designers and people hackers in the industry, and that's my market. It's a niche market, and I'm not going to make a ton of money at the beginning, but the goal is first get the users and then branch out from there. Of course,
I mean, you
yeah,
can always do it. I think the best example is Amazon, right? The guy raised a lot of money just by selling books. Amazon started just by
yeah,
selling books,
yeah,
but and he was like, "I'm gonna disrupt the internet." He was the he was ambitious from day zero. Jeff Bezos was
yeah,
ambitious from day zero, but that doesn't mean that you cannot start with something really niche and small
yeah,
and then branch out.
yeah. I think that's the best way to go. And I mean, I'm really happy to hear you saying this publicly because this is, for our audience, this is advice that you're giving me constantly. You're like, Chris, focus, 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 get out early, get users, iterate on their feedback, start niche, and then expand from there and try things. You know, this is what sometimes people call failing fast. I mean, try something. If it doesn't work, then you roll the dice and try again. I used to call entrepreneurship my stack of lottery tickets. It's like, well, just keep scratching lottery tickets. I got an infinite supply until they can't anymore.
Dennis came with a question. Do you think companies like Motif, and Snapchat are taking the right stance against giants like Autodesk? That's a really tough question, Dennis. You wanna go first, Chris, and then you're gonna say what you think, Dennis, after we say it to make it more fair.
Uh, so I've been following along with what Motive is doing, and it's really interesting. They have some, incredible people in the company. Um, Very smart. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Do I think they're taking the right stance? I mean, they're going at it methodically. They're talking to users. They're really like they're before they're launching products, they're working with architectural firms, and I think that is absolutely brilliant. You got to partner up with them, And if I was to if I had like more money or whatever, what I would be doing is creating a partnership with the architectural firms who are interested in making changes. And that's what I'm seeing Motive do. That's what they're publicly kind of saying on their site. So, and I think that's a great move. I know less about Snapchat. So anyway, I'll let you chime in. What are your
I
thoughts?
guess. I mean, I know Snapchat really well because we have worked with them, and I really know Altaf and their team and what they're doing. So, but I think I love what they're doing because first they have been meticulously working on a tool for years. So it's a company that's been there out there for more than 7 or 8 years now, I guess, and they really know about computational design. I like that. And what I also like is that they're not burning money like crazy like other startups do. So they're really good at it. And also, every time I go to a conference, they host private events where they ask people what they think about the product, and they do so much research with their clients, and they have pivot so many times in smaller stuff like going from design to conceptual design to architects to. So I have a big faith on what Snaptrap is doing because for me they are the only ones that they're doing it right as a kind of, let's say, Revit replacement or something. So I do really like what those guys are doing. Regarding to Motif, I think it's too early to say. At least based on what I know, they were successful about raising a lot of money, but so was Katera and WeWork. So it doesn't matter. It's a good thing, but if you don't know how to use the money, and they have brilliant people, they have so many brilliant people inside the company. So that's another good thing. But so did Katera and so did WeWork. So, um, I and I don't know. I think it's a good sign that the CEO was a former co-CEO of Autodesk. So I bet he knows what he's doing. But at least in what I think, it's too early to say. Um, and then I hope you say what you think, Dennis, as well. Pablo is saying, first of all, big fan of. Do you think companies are wrong focusing on creating a Revit killer app?
I mean, I think that's what we were basically saying before. I think we both. It's interesting because I think there's an opportunity. I don't think everybody should come in and do that. And as you said, that's not a great strategy to start with. I mean, one of the things I always tell people when I'm giving them advice and coaching them or mentoring them is that you cannot expect to change people's workflows. And their workflow is to use Revit daily. So they're not going to stop doing that. So if you want to be successful, you're going to have to find a way to play well with their current workflow, enhance it, and then make it almost natural for them to start doing things outside of the tool or start to leave it. Um, but one of the challenges is with that, and with all of the tools, is that Revit and other tools make it really hard to pull data out. So you're stuck with these APIs. And I mean, Revit does a pretty good job. They're not making it hard to pull data out on purpose. In fact, they're trying to support people doing that. But there are always these so C# APIs wrapped around slow legacy C++ code, uh, and you just and the file formats are all closed. It's all kind of bleh. So
Oh
I
no,
don't.
it makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think it's really hard to try and go out and say like I'm going to create a Revit killer. No, you got to create a Revit enhancer. In fact, you got to create a tools that are Revit, collaborators. I think that's if you're going into to attack architects or help architects, that's what you should do. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree on part of it. I guess something that Paul was just said about being Revit the bare minimum. Maybe it's something that I agree in on the fact, on the sense that I think that Revit was created 25 years ago. So it was created and meant for a different world. So there was nothing. It was CAD, and then everybody was meant to migrate to Beam. So there was just one big program for everybody. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think the world now it's different. Like everybody, it's or most people are using Beam. Most people are used to use the different tools. Most people are used to use AI. So now you need much more powerful and niche and tools that add much more value than just one thing that does it all for everybody. Yeah, in the past we used to manage businesses with Excel. Yeah, and it was the only thing we used to have. Remember, we nobody was using CRMs in the 90s. You were using Excel to manage your business. But
Mhm.
then platforms came, and then there was CRMs like Salesforce for everybody. But then there were CRM specifically for your industry, and I feel the world is changing, so the tools are going to change. I don't think it should be just a
I
new Revit, I guess.
Well, I agree. It's fascinating that you're saying that at the same time. Pablo's kind of saying that when Revit came on, it kind of caused a revolution. But I want to point out that there's room for another revolution. The industry moved from CAD, which are basically dumb 3D drawings, to slightly more informed 3D models that had some constraints, loosey goosey, random constraints. Uh, but there's another revolution ahead, which is how you deal with data. So, look, imagine you just had a notepad and you just wrote all your stuff down in it. And then you go to spreadsheets and you go, oh my God, this is a game changer. But then you go to databases, and all of a sudden it's another level of game changing of scalability and data analytics and query languages. What what you can do with a database or with a an SQL compatible database versus what you do with Excel is night and day. And Revit, sorry, BIM data, well, was kind of like Excel. There's totally another world to go in terms of structuring your data. One of the things that Clifton Harness said from TestFit said the other day on LinkedIn, and barely anybody noticed, is that the problem with design tools today is they don't capture design intent. They don't capture what it is, why you're trying to achieve what you're doing. So they're just they're just still drawings with constraints and parameters, but they're not what did you want and what were your goals and what were your requirements. So the next level, which will happen, and I want to be a part of this, is data management at scale.
No, no, I think you brought a great point on on the fact that there is room for a new revolution.
Yeah.
I guess I guess you have less odds of being successful with your startup if you're targeting to disrupt the whole industry. Not that you cannot accomplish it. I'm just
Yeah, I know.
saying that you need to, you can go for it, but you need to know that it might be David versus Goliath. You just need to
Yeah,
be
of
aware
course.
of it. That's
Yeah,
it.
no, and I agree with that. It's funny because there's the advice I give other people versus the path that I want to follow. But I'm just saying, as an industry, through collaboration, we should look at not being satisfied with what there is. So when we talk about just going niche and just accepting the status quo of BIM data, I'm like, guys, like the future will be something entirely different. And to move people over, you have to offer something that you said it's got all of those things that you listed before. It's got to be cheaper, faster, looks better, easier to use, but then it has to do something substantially different with its approach to data. And if that's where the revolution will happen, is a tool that does all of these.
Yeah, maybe even automation, I guess. Like Revit is
Oh yeah, I
still,
mean, automation is just, it's like ground zero. Like there's so many ground things and they're
yeah,
established. I mean, Autodesk does all of these things to a degree. I mean, you've got
yeah.
Dynamo, you've got the Revit API. I want to see what Ricardo wrote here. He says maybe these niche solutions that we decide to create must solve the proposed business problem and then develop and keep the business solution platform agnostic and create ports connected to the main or more demanded BIM software. So yeah, that's a common approach we're seeing with startups who are creating connectors. And so Speckle did very much that, is that they're trying to solve a business problems and they're creating connectors to the existing pieces of software. Eh, that was very bold. That was incredibly bold of them. I would have never advised anyone to do
Yeah.
what they did. And if I had to predict if they were going to be as successful as they are, I would have said no. But they are indeed rocking it. I think in a way, it's just like sometimes as an entrepreneur, you just have to go, I want this. I don't care. I want this. I'm going to go do it. And that kind of blinding, which this also makes CEOs and entrepreneurs really tough to work with sometimes because they'll just ignore everyone around them and just keep going one direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's bold. It's at the same time risky.
Oh, I love
And
risk though.
no, I love it. I love it. I'm not against it. I'm just being fair with it. And I do think, going back to what Ricardo said about being platform agnostic, I think we're in our industry we're used to depend on other platforms, and and I think that's going to change as well. In other industries, everybody has an API, everybody has connectors that are open. Like most platforms, it's really easy to go in and out of on any platform in other industry, whether it's Google, whether it's HubSpot, whether it's Salesforce, Slack, whatever. Like it's really easy to go in and out. So I think that's going to be a change in our industry where software companies will get to adapt to this world where you need to easily allow your users to go in and out, take that data in and out of it.
Yeah. It's a tough thing because it goes against traditional business thinking, to say, look, I'm going to make it easy for people to take data out of my tool. You have to be very bold and be thinking that you're going to create a technical moat in some other way. I advise people against that nowadays. I said, look, you can't build your business around trying to keep data private. Unfortunately, the older companies, they did. And I mean, I'll tell you what, like there are companies like Dassault and I mean, getting their API, you got to be on a waiting list for 2 years, and then they have the right to take away the business if they don't like your own business that you drum up. And if they say, "Oh, we want that as a customer," they can just take it away from you. It's horrible. And so they're really they really control the ecosystem. Autodesk opened it up. Speckle's going even bigger. I mean, but I think the future is that open connectivity and making people access to data and build your moat in terms of usability and in terms of workflows. Like that's what I want to see.
It's
Yeah,
going to happen eventually. It's going to happen. Like it's the
yeah,
same that happened in all industries. Remember SAP? When you had to implement SAP, you had to hire an official consultant that will charge you thousands of dollars just to implement the software. Can you imagine that? Nowadays, you just purchase it and use it. So the same is going to happen in our industry, whether Autodesk likes it or not.
Mhm.
Uh, it's going to happen. It's going to be an open ecosystem, and it's going to be like happens in other industries, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm trying to encourage that. I'm trying to create partnerships with other small startups and saying, look, what are the open source tools and data formats that we can use to make our workflows more efficient and support others? And like for example, just today I was like, and you and I have talked about this, trying to get GLTF out of Revit, and it's like the only really widely supported GLTF exporter is the one from Evers, and I think that there's a lot
The
of
only free
potential.
one.
Free, yes, sorry, yes, there's others. I'm not going to pay $100 to try them. Um, but GLTF is a very good format. It's well documented. So the question is like, how could we adapt that for our industry? So I have a lot of people, a lot of small companies I'm talking to at the same time, and they're very excited by the fact of maybe GLTF could be our way of moving geometry around, because it solves a lot of these problems that we kind of have. Um, so the thing that I want to talk about is just saying that we need to partner up together. Small companies need to work together. Firms, large firms, need to continue to support the small companies, and give them feedback, try out their products, make small investments, give grants, whatever it takes to try and open up the ecos and create the next generation ecosystem.
I think that's already happening. Like if you see the amount of AC startups that are being born every year, it's increasing insanely fast. Like since I think 2019 or 2020, it's growing so fast in the last 5 or 4 years. So it's happening. There is a change in our industry where more and more startups are being born, and eventually some of them will become huge and will compete with the big ones. It's like Thanos. It's inevitable.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I mean, again, I come back to my old fan. I'm a bit of a fanboy now as Beckle, and they've done that with other businesses where they partner up with people and they support each other. And I think that kind of approach is the future. And they would be like Matteo and Dimitri would be right on board with us, saying, yeah, this is the way the future needs to be.
Yeah. And also I think people need to have in mind that Autodesk, I think it was in 1998 or 1996 or something. It was, that it was one of the five biggest technology companies in the world.
Hmm.
So it was huge. It was even huge than it was right now. Right now, it's nothing if you compare the 6 billion they make every year to the 200 billion Facebook makes. So they used to be huge.
I did not know that Facebook made that much money. And how I'm like wondering how they're making all that money, but okay.
Well, but I mean, it's not that it already happened that they used to be huge and now they're big. If you compare it with other technology companies, and it might happen that in the future it might be just another company. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. Well, I think that's what happens. It tends to be a lot like a lot of companies have kind of like this
Well, they
these
can
cycles.
become even bigger. I don't know. That can
Yeah,
also happen. But
yeah, yeah. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. I don't
oh,
know that I have a whole lot more to contribute on it.
no, it was really fun, and I think we can wrap it up, but not before saying what we're gonna discuss in 3 weeks, which is gonna be open source. It is worth it or not?
I love that topic. I know you and I are going to be like gloves off for that one for certain parts of it, and some parts of it we agree. But it's yeah, it's fascinating. I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to talking about because my thinking around open source has really evolved over the last decade. So I have some war
It's
stories too.
I'm gonna be mean. I'm gonna be completely mean when we discuss it, but it is what it is.
Just don't be wrong, and we'll be
No.
fine.
All right. Thanks for your time, Chris, and thanks everybody. And we hope to see you on the next one.
All
All right.
right, likewise. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot, Valentin.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.